Hello, my name is Isaiah Paik. I am 19 years old, and I am running for President of the United States in 2020. I am running as an independent, I am running as an anti-capitalist, I am running as a member of Generation Z, and I am running for all of us. Please like, share, and follow to help us build a movement. Thank you.
I spend all day staring at my two screens. I got no new plans, I got no new trees now. Living on a webcam, feeling like a dead man. I might take my microphone and put it through my head, man. Get it through your head.
Isn't it so nice to have all this horizontal space? Like, look, there's no black bars here. I can reach around. Hello, my name is Isaiah Paik, known to 37,000 people as Paik for President on TikTok. And now I'm here on YouTube to talk about TikTok. Since that first video, I have made 240 videos, which is an absurd amount. Like, that's so much. Like, why did I do that? Well, let's talk about why.
When I grow up, I wanna be a computer. Always been a top tier consumer, content producer. I just got so much creative juice.
There were two big sociological trends that I wanted to try and study. The first one is described really well by Peter Coffin, who's a super cool YouTube person who also writes books. And they described the first change as the attention economy. Basically, new incentive structures stemming from ad revenue create a world where the goal is to keep eyeballs on screens for as long as possible. Attention becomes currency. The second big change is algorithmic distribution of content. So in a previous era, users would select all the content, but now more and more with social media platforms, content is selected, curated by an algorithm. These two forces create two distinct impacts in political media. The first one being extreme polarization. The more that companies profit from just keeping attention on their screens, the more they will try to do things to maximize that attention. This means developing a clear brand. This means developing into a bubble ecosystem where people will keep getting fed more and more stuff that keeps their attention on the screen. This means platforming certain kinds of content that is outrageous, affective, passionate. The second big impact that we see from algorithmic content distribution is algorithmic radicalization. American sociologist Jessie provides some good analysis on this point. She is writing about the rise of the alt-right, and she talks about how, while it can be partially explained as a crisis of the American white male identity, whatever that is, that kind of explanation ignores the influence of the internet. And in fact, the rise of the alt-right is part of an emerging media ecosystem which is powered by algorithms. These algorithms prioritize sending people similar kinds of content. So it creates bubbles where people are surrounded by content creators that are all pushing the same messages. And these messages get more and more extreme due to the fact that people only hear them. She notes that this can lead to alt-right terrorism. She notes the case of Dylan Roof. But it's important to recognize that this algorithmic radicalization goes both ways. I mean, I myself was radicalized to the far left through literally just watching YouTube videos and watching the other ones that were recommended to me. I started out when I was a wee lad watching things like Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Fallon late night, and then I started getting recommendations for Last Week Tonight, Hassan Minaj, and now here I am trying to be ContraPoints, Philosophy Tube, and everybody else at the same time. So basically, these two forces of political polarization and algorithmic radicalization are the things I wanted to try and study. So I decided to hop into TikTok and see what things were like on the ground floor. But my sociological interest was just a part of why I started this channel. This page. I'm getting ahead of myself, YouTube. There were other reasons as well. The second reason I would say was politically. I want to move the Overton window to the left. I want to say leftist things and have people hear them internalize them and start re-articulating them themselves. I want to create a world where maybe somebody could run for president with the ideas that I talked about when I said I was running for president. That's why I started my whole TikTok page with the framing of a presidential campaign. And that's why I staked myself out immediately as an anti-capitalist. I wanted to start putting out political messages. I wanted to be a part of a political media ecosystem. But beyond sociologically and politically, academically, I had homework I had to do. I was taking an intro to sociology class, and our professor was like, you should do a research project. And I was like, well, I could do that, or I could start a TikTok page and call that a research project. So I did that. I mean, TikTok, let me be clear, is a really, really good place to do sociological research. First of all, it has a absolutely massive reach. There are 1.5 billion downloads of this app. And the average user, according to Media Kicks, which is a source, I guess, the average user opens the app 8 times a day for about 5 minutes each time. That's a ton of content being consumed. Additionally, TikTok is currently, at least, relatively free of celebrity or corporate presence. Media Kicks says that only 4% of American advertisers are on the platform. Most of the people on there are private individuals with nothing to lose and nothing to gain and a lot to say. And then the final reason why I wanted to, after my intellectual interests and my homework and my desire to be a leftist, was that I just kind of personally want to gain social capital for myself. Like, I thought it would be cool to be on an app where people knew who I was and I could say things and people like the things that I say. So, after a few months of existing on this fascinating app, I decided to take the plunge. I've just been evicted from my school due to something called COVID-19, and I was fascinated by new media structures, and I wanted to spread leftism, and I wanted to see what TikTok was like, and I wanted to gain a little bit of that social capital clout for myself, so I decided to hop in. Let's talk about how TikTok works for a little bit. TikTok, in terms of content consumption, is radically different than any other social media platform that came before it. While there absolutely is a feature where users can look through and just see content from people that they follow, most people on TikTok use what's called the For You page. This is an algorithmically curated full screen scroll of content. And most fascinatingly, it is somewhat based on who you follow, but the algorithm that generates the For You page is a complete black box. And based on what people have said on TikTok, it seems to be based on who you follow, the kinds of videos you interact with by liking and commenting and sharing, your geographic location, and just random stuff that happens to be posted recently. This is really, really unique because in terms of research, this is what enabled me to start with 0 and end up now with 37,000. Although now at 37,000, I don't seem to be able to get any more followers, no matter how many videos I make or how dumb they get, and it's really frustrating. So for 3 months after I started my TikTok, I would record and publish 3 videos a day. And while I did think a lot about the general vibe of my TikTok and the specific arguments I made, the videos themselves were incredibly low effort. Like, here, let me show you what I mean. I'd open up the app, go to the little plus thing, and check my hair. Always flip the camera around. Always gotta do 1 take, just straight up, 60 seconds. Hello, I'm making a YouTube video. Isn't that fun? Yes, good. I don't have a YouTube account or a YouTube channel, so if you have any ideas for what I should call my YouTube channel, please let me know. If it's a really good idea, I very well may use it, because I need to make a YouTube channel for this YouTube video that I'm making. The video is going to be about TikTok, by the way. It's going to be sick. Alright. Yeah, that's how I make a TikTok. I'm making a YouTube hashtag TikTok, hashtag vote Paik, hashtag left, hashtag leftist, hashtag socialism, hashtag communism, hashtag capitalism, and hashtag politics. And then post. And yep, that's it. That's how I do it. My TikToks fell into a few broad categories. I had a 40-odd video series called Capitalism is Bad. I also had a lot of videos where I would respond to specific arguments I saw. There were a couple videos where I would attempt something akin to humor, but most of the time it was just me opening up my phone, yelling an argument at it, sending it out to the world, and sometimes people liked them. My goal at this time was to gather enough data where I could eventually write a paper about it. And I did, 24 days after I had begun my TikTok page. At that point I had, I think, 5,000 followers, and I thought that was, the best I could ever be. I decided to write a paper, and I wrote 26 pages of convoluted and stupid sociological analysis. For that paper, I analyzed 3 areas of my experience on TikTok: the success of certain videos, the types of comments that I would receive, and my own experiences and the changes I noticed within my own mental state. So let's start with that analysis.
You can take it all from me, I don't care. Baby, it's dopamine and despair. Yeah.
Let's start with video success. So when I first wrote that paper back in April, I had posted 73 total TikToks, of which 10 had surpassed 10,000 views. 10,000 views is a completely arbitrary measure of success, which I chose just because at 10,000, TikTok starts to use the letter K, and that makes me feel good. Now, at 240 videos, I have 32 that have passed 10K. Of those videos that have passed 10K, very rarely are they videos that I'm proud of. My most successful videos have been my least nuanced and articulate political arguments, or literally just political memes. It's fascinating because I can make an argument that I thoroughly craft, and I think about how to make it clear and punchy and persuasive, and I work really hard on it. Sometimes I would even write out a little script for a TikTok, and it would do fine. Couple hundred, couple thousand views. But if I took the same argument and made it in a way that was less polished, more abrasive, suddenly it would pop off. And I have lots of examples, but here's 2 big examples.
Oh, you're a fan of capitalism? Tell me, how much capital do you own? None? You sell your labor? You work for a wage like the rest of us? I got news for you then. You're not a capitalist, you're a simp!
That video got 22.4 thousand likes, 168.6 thousand views. Literally, I just call people simps for liking capitalism. Like, it's not a good argument. But here's another example.
To everybody who says that taxation is theft, it's not theft, because it's voluntary. You don't have to pay taxes. Just look at homeless people in the United States. They have no income tax, no property tax. They mostly live off of donations and things, so they don't have to get sales tax. They don't have to pay for Social Security. All of the taxes that you complain about because you say that you have to pay them are voluntary. And you might say, now wait a minute, Paik for president, my favorite TikTok political person. That's not voluntary at all, because if you don't do it, you end up homeless. And to that I would say, okay, so then participation in capitalism isn't voluntary either. Selling my labor for a wage isn't voluntary either. Working to make profit for my capitalist overlord isn't voluntary either. Huh.
74.3 thousand likes, 305,000 views. Literally my most viewed video ever. 1/3 people saw me wake up and tell the world that taxation is just not theft because homeless people don't have to pay taxes. Now, this is a general trend, and obviously there are some exceptions. But by and large, my best videos are the ones with the worst takes. This is exactly what Peter Coffin is describing. What matters is not intent or intelligibility, but rather affect. What matters is the passion and the argument. And the process behind this is super, super clear. TikTok does not have a dislike button. What does this mean? This means that if you find a TikTok and you like it, you're likely to like it. But if you don't like it, you're gonna comment. And typing out a comment takes more effort than leaving a like. So TikTok's algorithm prioritizes comments over likes when it's determining how much interaction a post has gotten. It also does not distinguish between positive comments and negative comments. What this means is that a more controversial argument will do better. It will be seen by more people, it will generate more comments, it will generate more interaction, and it will blow up on TikTok. And that's why my most viewed video is probably my worst take ever. The second thing that I looked at was the comments on my videos. This analysis is even more straightforward. Basically, there were like 4 categories of comments that I got. First is random comments. These were posts like hashtag Trump 2020 or first. They don't really contribute anything. Second is hate comments. These were a little bit more biting, a little bit more aggressive. These were comments like severely learning disabled, you are beyond hope, most committed Marxists are, you are an enemy of the American people, everything you said goes against everything America was built on, which like maybe a little bit. Several of these comments were also racially charged. If you ever want proof that racism is alive and well in America today, I highly recommend starting a social media account as a person of color. I got stuff like, I thought Asians were supposed to be the smart ones. Why don't you go back to China? You would be very happy there. We don't want your corona. Why don't you go to North Korea? I bet you already have family there. These more aggressive comments are thankfully not engaged with very much, but they make up about 10% of the comments on my videos. The third category of comments is rebuttals. These comments would be about 30 to 40% of my total comments and are actually super interesting to read. Those comments are where I would actually create the most productive discourse possible. There were some responses that really made me think. There were some people providing analysis that, added nuance or made me question the argument that I had made. But most of these rebuttals were not in good faith, and rather they just kind of re-articulated conservative talking points about innovation, or how healthcare isn't a right and people should just die, I guess, or taxation is theft, or capitalism is fair. Finally, the fourth kind of comments, which was the most interesting to me, was praise. This was about 40% of the comments on my videos, and it would range, in severity again. Sometimes it was just preach, or yes, or exactly, or you are correct, or well said, you're ahead of your time. And sometimes it was a little bit more aggressive. I got one, found my future husband, or you can start a daycare in my throat. Overall, looking at comments reflected the second sociological trend that I was interested in, which was radicalization and political bubbles. The majority of comments were either, yes, you're correct, or no, you're incorrect, and also stupid and Asian. That dichotomy indicates that people already had opinions. Only a handful of times can I remember getting messages or comments saying, this changed my mind, or this made me think. The vast majority of people, it seems, were not interested in thinking at all. Finally, for our last point of analysis, I want to talk about my own personal experience on TikTok. The following is quoted directly from that paper I wrote back in April. TikTok began to consume my life. I check the app probably between 10 and 20 times a day. I do my best to read and respond to as many comments as I can, and I used to spend time following back everybody who followed me. Each new milestone feels less significant. When I posted my first video and it reached 100 views, I was overjoyed. When it reached 1,000 later that night, I was over the moon. Now, over 250,000 views later, I'm disappointed with myself when a video I make doesn't get more than a few thousand views. I'm frustrated when I only gain 100 followers in a day instead of 200. Because I'm able to easily see how many followers other users have, I'm constantly comparing my own following to that of others. Though my primary goal is still, I hope, to spread the ideas themselves, my evaluations of my self-worth are increasingly based on my follower count. In June of this year, I stopped making TikToks. I took 3 months and I barely even glanced at the app because it was so incredibly draining. In August, I returned to the platform and I've continued to make videos, though more sporadically, with less frequency and much less success. My account has been stagnant at 37,000 followers for a couple months now. I left because I was so incredibly frustrated with so many things that no matter how many people it seemed like I was reaching, it seemed like I was convincing, there was an endless supply of people to disagree with me and berate me. No matter how much I railed against the mindless accumulation of capital, I had become addicted to the mindless accumulation of social capital. No matter how much I tried to perfect my messages, to perfect my arguments, I had no control over where my videos went, who saw them, and which ones mattered. Everything I made was just another commodity, going out there, existing, doing nothing, meaning nothing. My original analysis back in April concluded thusly. TikTok is a capitalist hellhole. Leftist TikTok was just a bubble. It's just a bunch of people who are completely embedded in a capitalist commodity structure. And that last point really got to me over the summer months. People talk about people on TikTok as if it's a community, but it's not. It's all commodities. Calling TikTok a community is like going to the grocery store and calling that a community. You walk down the aisles by yourself, you glance around at different commodities that different people far away from you have made. Videos on TikTok are not people, they're just faces. They're just faces that don't even get to profit or make anything off of their faces being shown. That's what TikTok is. And I ended my paper back in April by describing a new category of sociological subject. Now, this was me trying to be a big brain academic sociological type. And the term that I came up with is a new kind of person. And I called us, because I do think that I am one of them, political consumers. The political consumer is a young person who has grown up on a diet of political media. We can be of any political stripe, but are usually the product of new media algorithmic radicalization. We consume political content extensively and are ourselves consumed by it, resulting in 3 unique characteristics. First, we are incredibly politically passionate. We consume media that is urgent, emotional, and powerful, and the more media that we consume, the more algorithms tailor our feeds to hit our exact emotional triggers. Second, we are unfocused. Though our passion is genuine, our politics tend to be purely ideological. Policy talk doesn't sell, so the media that's boosted to us is strong rhetoric, logical flourishes, and pure ideology. This lack of concrete information is why there is so much discourse on TikTok. People can argue forever when nobody knows the truth. Finally, we are completely entrenched inside of capitalism. Though a sizable portion of us are ardent leftists, the media environments we inhabit have instilled inside us capitalist ideals. Political consumers operate under a paradigm of meritocracy, the desire to accumulate capital for themselves, and the illusion of labor as entertainment. Using TikTok is labor. Not only are we viewing the ads that generate revenue for TikTok, we produce and engage with all of the content that makes the app valuable to begin with. TikTok's video format invites users to film themselves dancing or acting or singing or performing some cool trick or talent, and there are millions of American children out there now doing physical labor for a corporation for free. But TikTok is not even alone. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any social media app that doesn't compensate its users like YouTube does, and even YouTube is kind of sus, is profiting from what theorist Tiziana Terranova calls free labor. She was writing 20 years ago about the users who generated and moderated content for AOL message boards, and she explains that the digital economy has sold us this notion that online labor isn't labor, but entertainment. Especially in a world where corporations will pay teams of people large salaries to manage corporate social media accounts, we should be able to recognize that the individuals doing it for free, for clout and clout alone, are getting a bad deal. But all of us, myself included, willingly open the app every day to film ourselves railing against capitalism while participating in its exploitation. So yeah, that's what I thought. And that's why I left. For a while. You know, maybe someday I'll actually read this book. But not today. I spent most of the semester and the summer before this past semester thinking to myself, what does this analysis imply? My analysis was essentialist and pointless in that it didn't lead me to any positive conclusion. It just made me sad and stop making TikToks. So I decided to sit down and do some theoretical recalibration. And I started with Marx. In 1944, Karl Marx wrote a little ditty called For a Ruthless Critique of Everything. And in it, he sets out a vision for what theoretical critique should be. He says, I am speaking of a ruthless criticism of everything existing. Ruthless in two senses. The criticism must not be afraid of its own conclusions, nor of conflict with the powers that be. I am therefore not in favor of setting up any dogmatic flag. We shall confront the world not as doctrinaires with a new principle. Our motto must therefore be reform of consciousness not through dogmas, but through analyzing the mystical consciousness, the consciousness which is unclear to itself, whether it appears in religious or political form. His point here is that critique should not be dogmatic, but instead responsive. Responsive in a way that recognizes the consciousness, or whatever it's studying, where it's at, and then seeks to illuminate and inform. My original analysis of TikTok was nothing if not dogmatic. It was literally me saying, capitalism bad, TikTok capitalism, therefore TikTok bad. What it was my anti-capitalist beliefs bleeding into my sociological analysis of the function of what TikTok is doing. And that was not helpful for my analysis or for me. So now let's turn to more recent sociologists. I then read this piece from Izabela Wagner, who is a European sociologist, and it's called The Unexpected Effects of Coronavirus, the Rebirth of Sociology and Sociologists. In this piece, she describes the fascinating disconnect between her experience lecturing at a university and her work as a refugee ethnographer and shelter volunteer. Her students in the academic ivory tower are disinterested, disillusioned, and disengaged, whereas the refugees that she interacts with are engaged and vocal and optimistic and share her passion for reshaping the world to be more fair and just. She really hammers home this disconnect and what she hopes to do about it in the conclusion of her piece. We have no choice if we wish to survive as a profession. Without our active engagement in social change, our departments will be the place of work for frustrated sociologists, depressed and burned out. My dream is to work in an open university, a place where all who would like to learn and share knowledge are welcome. Their voices will be important not merely as raw data, but also as a matter for analysis conducted with them as participants. Wagner's take is that sociology should be engaged with the world as opposed to merely just commenting on it. My initial analysis was the opposite of engaged. It was very disengaged because at that time I was very disengaged. I had given up hope on TikTok and I had removed myself from the platform. At the conclusion of this brief dive into the literature, I realized that my original analysis was fundamentally misguided. Instead of focusing on what TikTok is, I should instead focus on what TikTok can do and how TikTok can function. The is question is a question of definition. It's a question of essentialization. It doesn't produce anything productive because all it does is categorize. It says this is this and this can never be changed. There's nothing you can do about it. But the does question, the question of function, is productive. It's inclusive. It allows for reflexive judgment, but also productive and progressive action. So, Armed with this theoretical recalibration, I decided to actually do some research and look at some data outside of my own head and outside of my own experience. So what I did was I posted a survey on my TikTok. I left it up for a couple of days and I got 71 responses. So now, let's leave the theory and let's look at the data. To start, let's talk about sort of the big data overlying stuff. The first question I asked on that front was, how long have you had the TikTok app? Biggest answer, the plurality, was over a year, which is longer than I've had the TikTok app. It's really incredible to see that like people are sticking with it and they enjoy it apparently. And on that, another question I asked was, do you produce your own public videos or do you just watch others? And while I expected it to be more 50-50, it was actually 62% just watch other people's videos. And the fact that a lot of these people are still thinking critically about TikTok as a space is really, really inspiring. Other questions I asked were, do you think that individual TikToks matter outside of the app itself? Out of 71 people, 85% of them said yes. When I asked, do you think TikTok clout or fame matters? 77% of people said yes. And when I asked, has TikTok ever changed your mind about a subject? 85% said yes. This means that people think that TikTok absolutely has potential to impact the wider world. So the first question that I asked people that actually had like a response where you could type something was, do you have any additional thoughts about the TikTok as a platform for social change? Because TikTok videos are very short, they can spread ideas about people fast. When enough people share the same ideas, it could come to bring about real change in the world. That's true. I mean, it's not true if you are like a super historical materialist, but it is true if you like read like Max Weber. He's a big fan of ideas changing the world. He wrote a whole book. He was like, Protestants like capitalism, so now capitalism is. I've met so many great people through the app on the political side of TikTok. I think it's a really great platform for planting seeds of leftism, but not in-depth discussions or ideas. It can also be useful for raising a lot of money for social causes. You happen to be one of my favorite forces for social change on here. Aw, well, isn't that great? I won't lie, TikTok has definitely radicalized me and helped me form my anti-capitalist opinions. I don't know that any one individual creator could change anything, especially given how the algorithm works. That's true. I don't think I as an individual have done anything super significant that somebody else wouldn't have done, but I think we as individuals together have been able to definitely change the culture with cumulative action. I think it can rally people together, but also encourage people to think that TikToks by themselves could be activism and to be purely performative instead of working for real change. I answered no to a TikTok changing my mind because it's only further radicalized me. I was already on the anti-capitalist path. TikTok was just an accelerant. TikTok is a community, therefore we all gather together to discuss social issues. We are the future, and most of our generation is on this app. I love the idea of TikTok as a 21st century digital public space, like the modern day Agora or the marketplace of ideas. But it's all privatized. The public sphere has been privatized. Discourse itself has been privatized. So overall, looking at all of these thoughts about TikTok as a platform for social change, two big takeaways. First of all, people were so much more optimistic than I was when I first did my analysis. And the second thing is even more interesting, which is that lots and lots of people recognized the same problems with TikTok, the same frustrations that I held. And that was really powerful for me looking at this information, because when I got really into my depressive analysis of TikTok, where I was saying TikTok's all capitalism, it's all commodities, there's no community, it's just exploitation. The biggest component of that was that I felt that I was the only person who understood what was going on. Not only is that super isolating and unhelpful, it's literally the epitome of the academic ivory tower, but it's also like a really depressing state of mind. And I think what I should have realized is that everybody interacts with TikTok. We all experience the same functions, the same ethos. And what that means is that because this struggle is shared, we can start to think about ways that we as a community can recognize these problems and then work around them or within them in order to still achieve some actionable material ends. I decided to go even further. And so I interviewed 3 different people, 2 of whom were a little bit younger than me, 1 of whom is about 3 times my age. Future Isaiah, roll the montage.
My name is Ellie. I'm 18. I'm from Toronto. So into politics.
Hi, I'm Frankie Enciso. I'm a TikToker.
My name is Thomas Rowland. I'm an Episcopal priest.
I think it was honestly at the beginning of quarantine when I really started.
March 13th, around the time lockdown came in.
Yeah, that's like when I started as well.
Because of TikTok's algorithm being so catered to you, I started getting into political TikTok.
I kept seeing a lot of content from it on Instagram.
I haven't posted in a while, but it's mainly politics, like political comedy, just political commentary as well.
I post the content that makes me happy.
I've only made one ultra lame one.
I do think TikTok is like a net good. I think TikTok has done a lot of good things.
I think TikTok is really cool because, you know, there's different sides to TikTok, as people talk about all the time on the app, and it's accepting to everyone, really. And
it's kind of a double-edged sword with how divided TikTok is. Like, everybody could be on TikTok at the same time and be seeing completely different feeds, completely different content. But I think within each kind of niche on TikTok, there's like really close communities.
I watched you fight for president. Your political analyses were spot on.
Just like any corporation, we're kind of predictable in how it works.
A lot of people are like weird when it comes to TikTok as a company because they do record the data that we watch, but they do it for an obvious reason, which is to make our For You page.
People worry about them taking our information. It's every app on your phone.
It's a really like addicting algorithm, which I think is like what it's trying to do.
So it's really a brilliant, insidious piece of capitalism from a communist country. So,
you know, I'm gonna be more forgiving to like a capitalist corporation that I feel seen by.
I guess it's emotionally, physically very draining. Otherwise, people wouldn't drop out all the time, which shows that at least you're thinking. That's why the Trump-supporting TikToks, they're not going to get too tired. But when you have to think about it, come up with a logical thing and squeeze it into 60 seconds and repeat it and then stand up to the haters.
Part of the content I create is femboy content. It's me wearing a skirt, and that of course gets a lot of good attention, but it also gets a lot of bad attention. And I get a lot of comments that are like, "Oh, well, the fruit's gone bad" or something like that. But I really just don't care. I let that stuff roll off my back, and it's just that's how I deal with it.
I really do think that it has a real world effect.
We've bullied the president and started a musical about a rat. So
the Trump rally that like everybody bought out tickets and then no one went.
The Tulsa rally a few months, whenever it was. I don't know, Herman, it was this year.
Yeah, we're gonna start saying poggers, or we're like, as a generation, we decided to do X, Y, or Z, and then immediately TikTok is like, all right, and then we're off and gone and doing that thing already. And I think it's really, really cool how we sort of affect the outside world just by all mutually agreeing to be weird.
But I've just seen a lot of videos that were like, oh, I started quarantine as, you know, just wanting to go on TikTok for comedy, and now I'm like a capitalist hating leftist or something. People who would otherwise be not as critical becoming more critical and like aware of their position in the world because of TikTok and because of what it allows for like anyone to get on the app and create something and like have it be seen by possibly thousands or even millions of people, right?
It's mind-opening to open other cultures. I'm learning a lot from communist TikTok. There are many people who have come to the conclusion that the United States is truly a corrupt country, more than just a neoliberal, going to make the rich get richer.
And maybe it's also just because this is like the first, just because of how old I am, I guess it's like the first app that I've like really created stuff on. If I was like a YouTuber or something, you wouldn't find that community as quickly.
Final thoughts are TikTok is a good force, and I can see why some people wouldn't understand it. They'd want to sort of turn it into this location for social pariahs, but that's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's a location for social pariahs to all get together and realize they're not alone.
My TikTok, my username is antisocial socialist. I don't post much anymore, but I am proud of like a lot of my videos.
My handle is _Ratrick, like Patrick, but with an R, _.
I'm 58. I'm your grandfather's age. Yeah.
So, as we can see, my original analysis was epistemically incomplete and theoretically unproductive. I didn't include anybody's thoughts except for my own, and the thoughts that I did include were based on the is question, not on the function question. So, after all of that sociology and surveying, where are we now? Remember, the question is not, what is TikTok? The question is, what can TikTok do? And the answer is that TikTok rounds out the bottom end of a new sociological construct that I am creating called the scale of accessibility. There's lots of different ways that ideas and content can be shared, consumed, and absorbed. And it's very tempting and very easy to think of these ways as separate, isolated experiences. But in reality, people and ideas move across them with almost no regard for the barriers between them. And let me show you what I mean. Here's the scale of accessibility. You can see that I've mapped out TikTok, YouTube, and academic theory because these are three things that I interact with a lot. Let's break down how this scale works by going through each of these independently. Starting with TikTok. Now, TikTok represents the far left side of this scale, which is arbitrary, of course, but at that point, it represents both the most accessible and the least nuanced form of content delivery and idea absorption. And there's several ways in which this is the case. I mean, TikTok videos are randomly consumed, which means that they have a guaranteed super wide reach. Videos are also served to people on an algorithmic platter. Literally, as soon as you open up the app, you're already watching content. It guarantees accessibility at the highest level because it basically just forces your video down people's throats. There's a super broad audience as well, with a super high consumption rate. If I watch TikTok for an hour, I'll probably watch between 70 and 90 different TikToks. There's also a time limit in TikTok, which forces arguments and ideas to be concise and therefore simple, less nuanced, but also more accessible. Additionally, there is a competitive marketplace mentality. TikTokers think of their content as a commodity that's going into a marketplace. And in that sense, they're forced to think of it as being broadly accessible, appealing, and attractive to the viewer. On that point, TikTok has the least nuance available, at least of the three ideas that I've charted, because of its time limit, because of its random distribution. But the biggest value of TikTok is that there is very little personal stake in it. For me to start talking as a 19-year-old about how I'm running for president, that wouldn't be like, I couldn't write an academic paper about that. I couldn't even really do that on YouTube, but I could absolutely do that on TikTok. And that's the beauty of TikTok. Most TikTokers have no stakes in TikTok. We don't make money off it. It's not our livelihood. It's literally just something that we do for our own entertainment and edification. The fact that there's very little neoliberal ties and pressures means that the messaging can be drastically imaginative and productive. In the middle of the scale, we have YouTube. Now, YouTube is a little bit interesting because, like TikTok, videos are recommended to you by an algorithm based on your history of searches and interactions. YouTube, like TikTok, also has a super broad audience with a super high consumption rate. However, unlike TikTok, these videos still must be selected. If I open up YouTube, it doesn't just start playing a video at me like TikTok would. Instead, I have to go and click on it. What this does is a couple things. Instead of a marketplace mentality like TikTok, there's more of a fan base mentality on YouTube. You're likely to watch videos of creators that you enjoy. And creators are likely to make videos not for everybody, like a competitive marketplace, but rather for their own fan base, for their own loyal consumers. Beyond that, of course, there's no time limit on YouTube. You can make a video that's hours and hours long, like this one's probably gonna be. Even though accessibility may take a hit, nuance goes up dramatically. In general, on YouTube, you have a self-selected audience base that's still somewhat algorithmic, still somewhat random. Videos can still go viral and pop off and be seen by a wide swath of people, but because it is more self-selected, it allows for more nuance at the cost of some accessibility. Additionally, with YouTube, there is some pressure to conform with neoliberalism. While you can still absolutely pop off on YouTube anonymously, YouTube is much more based on individual kind of cults of personality. If you really want to pop off on YouTube, you need to establish your videos as a component of you. And when you do that, it becomes a little bit harder to be radical and resist capitalism, especially because YouTubers are so often caught up in neoliberal incentive structures such as getting sponsorships. Which brings me to the next segment of this video, the sponsorship. This video is sponsored by Raycon. I don't know what, I think they're earbuds. They have not given me any money, but we're also sponsored by Squarespace. If you use the code, if you go on Squarespace's website and you use the code Paik for President, nothing will happen. But that's their fault. This YouTube video is brought to you by Audible. If you like books, but you don't like reading, Audible, Surfshark VPN. You know when you're surfing and you see a shark? So finally, at the complete opposite end of the scale of accessibility from TikTok, we have academic theory. Academic theory is the opposite of TikTok in several ways. First of all, academic theory must be actively sought out. There's no algorithm that's going to recommend or just start reading a theory at me, okay? I have to go and individually either find reading, or I have to go to college and take a course, which is still me selecting something, and then the professor of that course has to select a bunch of readings, and then I will not do those readings. So that's how academic theory is distributed. But beyond that, each reading must be chosen and read. And what this means is that unlike YouTube or TikTok, there's no aggregating force that would put them all on the same page in the same format. I guess the closest thing might be going to college, but going to college is by far the most expensive streaming service ever. Beyond that though, academic theory has an absurdly tiny audience. According to this screenshot from the website of the American Sociological Review, every year they have 600,000 digital downloads of individual publications, and that's how they calculate their readership. Now, this isn't downloads of the entire journal. This is just somebody going to their website, downloading one article. That happens 600,000 times. My most viewed TikTok, which I made in 1 minute with no sources and no research and one take, got 300,000 views. Do you want to know how many people actually read the physical American Sociological Review journal? You want to know? It's 3,000 people. It's 3,180 people. That's it. I have over 12 times that many followers on my TikTok account, and my TikTok account is stagnant and terrible. But that lack of accessibility trades off with the most nuance possible. Like literally, these people can write whole books. And the other thing about theory is that it's in boring words, not videos like this. Like this is fun, right? It's more fun than if we were both just reading a book. And with academic theory, there's not really a marketplace. People aren't really writing theory with the goal of having the widest audience possible. Deleuze and Guattari didn't sit down and think about how can we make Anti-Oedipus a mass market paperback book. And the final point about academic theory is that there's also a huge vested interest in maintaining the neoliberal status quo. Because if you write academic theory, especially if you are a tenured professor or you work for some sort of neoliberal institution like a university, You are the neoliberal status quo, bro. In order to publish theory, you need to tie it to yourself as a person. You can't publish a book or an analysis in the American Sociological Review anonymously. And what that means is you're never going to write theory as radical as some 12-year-old to 15-year-old kid on TikTok talking about how he wants to eat the rich and end capitalism. So, as we can see, as you move across the scale of accessibility from left to right, accessibility goes down, nuance goes up, and entrenchment within capitalist neoliberal structures remains relatively constant, but the pressures of those structures go up. Obviously, I've only mapped out 3 sources of content and ideas on this scale, but you can map out many, many more. Discord, Twitter, Tumblr, Reddit, all of these have their place along this axis of nuance versus accessibility. So what's the point? The first conclusion is that we should not think of these different media platforms and forms as separate, isolated entities. Rather, we should consider them as parts of a larger network. Though TikTok, YouTube, and the American Sociological Review are different institutions, they share an audience and they share ideas. We move between these institutions and we carry our ideas and our thoughts and our voices between them. If we think of ourselves as agents connecting these things, we can get to the second conclusion, which is that if you want to change the world, you have the highest success if you, as a thinker or a movement or a creator, can present the same ideas at every point across this spectrum. And you know how I know that? I know that because that is exactly what the American conservative wing has done. On the academic theory side, they fund think tanks, and these think tanks will publish studies saying things like climate change isn't real, or regulations are bad, or business is good. And then those same ideas, those same talking points will filter down into the YouTube bubble. You have the YouTube space, PragerU, Turning Point USA, Ben Shapiro, all of these YouTube creators are saying the exact same talking points. And then, for some reason, because unlike the YouTubers and the think tanks, they're not getting paid, there's a bunch of libertarian TikTokers that will go on TikTok and try to present themselves as cool and subversive for saying, no, actually, it's not capitalism bad, it's corporatism bad. And if we just deregulated everything and privatized everything, then the world would be great. They represent the lowest end of the scale of accessibility for the right. And they, combined with the YouTubers and the think tanks, are able to present a unified message. That's how we get to this neoliberal hellscape that we live in today. Well, the unified message and also the billions of dollars in oil money and funding. But I can't control the billions of dollars. You can't control the billions of dollars. So let's focus on the messaging. But what do we do now? How do we make our sociology more engaged? And how do we make TikTok more enlightened? Because remember, in many ways, TikTok absolutely sucks. It's a company that makes billions in profit off of the backs of children doing dances. It destroys mental health in the name of capital. It is all of these terrible things. But that doesn't matter. What it is doesn't matter. What matters is what it can do. Now, we can be pessimistic, like I was before, and say that leftist discourse on TikTok, social change on TikTok is meaningless because it's completely embedded within this larger capitalist structure. But without leftists on TikTok, TikTok is going to keep doing just fine. It's going to keep chugging along. It's going to keep dancing and singing and making sounds and memes and jokes. It's going to exist. So we shouldn't think of leftist messages being corrupted and consumed by TikTok. We should instead think of TikTok as this capitalist hellhole that we can engage with, we can infiltrate, and we can use to spread leftist messages. How can you imagine alternative futures when the most imaginative minds are locked out of the academic ivory tower? How can you advance leftist ideas across society in a way that's actually accessible and open when there's no unity between think pieces published at the very top and TikToks published at the very bottom? It's clear what the answer is. We need people who make TikToks to start reading and writing academic theory. And to some extent, they already do that. So what we really need is we need people who read and write academic theory to start making TikToks. That's how you do engaged, reflexive, interactive sociology. That's how you reach people where they are. And we need people like me, with one foot in the door of academia and one foot clearly out in the real world, to continue to do both and try to bring those branches together. That's how we treat these various disparate forms as components of a larger network and then use them to functionally and pragmatically and realistically try and change the world. As Izabela Wagner says, the word university comports universe. That is contrary to the ivory tower in which we are imprisoned now. Tomorrow, I hope for our liberation. Tomorrow, we will recall why we chose to be sociologists. We will meet again with different people. We will recover our ability to connect with the world. We will change our social role from the passive observer and chronicler of the present time into an active and creative member of a changing society. And as I say, hello, my name is Isaiah Paik. I am now 20 years old, and I am not running for president of the United States of America in 2020. I am a leftist, I am a member of Gen Z, and TikTok will be a part of our future, whether we like it or not. So, let's use it to change the world.
Living on a webcam, feeling like a dead man. I might take my microphone and put it through your head now. Soon the law we